Dread horror, uncover the darkest mysteries that remain unsolved. If you dare, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying story. The old yearbook was never supposed to be found. That's what the janitor told us when he caught me and my friends huddled in the dusty storage room behind the school library. The yearbooks were stacked in neat piles, spanning decades of forgotten memories, but one in particular stood out. It had no title on the spine, no glossy cover, just a battered black book with fading silver edges. Something about it made my skin crawl, but curiosity got the best of us. When we opened it, the pages were filled with students we didn't recognize, students that didn't exist. Their names were unfamiliar, their faces eerily vacant. And then we saw the last few pages. Each page contained a single student portrait, but unlike the others, these students were staring directly ahead, their expressions frozen in terror. Some had their mouths twisted in silent screams, their hands raised as if trying to shield themselves from something unseen. The dates beneath their names weren't graduation years. They were death dates. One of the names stood out, Emily Cartwright, 1987. Beneath her photo was a caption written in blood-red ink. She saw too much. We laughed it off at first. It had to be a prank, right? Some kind of twisted senior tradition. But the janitor wasn't laughing. He snatched the book from our hands and whispered, "You should have left it alone." That night, my best friend Jason vanished. We had been texting back and forth about the book, joking about how creepy it was. The last message he sent read, "I think I saw her. I thought he was messing with me." But the next day, he never showed up at school. His parents filed a missing persons report, but the police found no leads. His phone was discovered in his room, still open to our last conversation. A week passed, then another. One night, unable to sleep, I opened the yearbook again. My heart stopped. Jason's picture had been added to the last page. Panic took hold of me. I tried telling my parents, my teachers, even the police, but no one believed me. They told me it was grief playing tricks on my mind. But I knew what I saw. I tracked down the janitor after school, demanding answers. "What is this?" I asked, shoving the yearbook in his face. He looked at it with fear in his eyes. "It chooses," he whispered. "Every decade, the book takes new names. They become part of it, forgotten by everyone else." "That's impossible," I argued. "People don't just disappear from existence." He shook his head. "You think this school was always like this? You ever wonder why we don't have records before 1950? They were erased. The book took them. And now, it's taken your friend." I felt cold all over. "How do I stop it?" His expression darkened. "You can't. Once a name is written, it stays. Unless," I leaned in. "Unless what?" "Unless you give it another name." I ran home, the yearbook clutched tightly in my hands. I flipped through the pages, desperate for a way out. My breath hitched when I saw my own face staring back at me on the final page. Beneath it, a caption in that same red ink, "You saw too much." I was next. I had two options: wait for whatever was coming for me, or give the book a new name. A name to take my place. Tears burned in my eyes as I stared at the blank space where a name could be written. My hands trembled. If I didn't do this, I would disappear. Just like Jason. Just like Emily Cartwright. My mind raced. My teacher, Mr. Owens, was always cruel to students. The principal turned a blind eye to everything. The school bully, Chad, had made my life a living hell. I had options. But could I live with myself after? The air in my room turned ice cold. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. A whisper slithered through the air. "Choose." My hand moved on its own. I wrote a name. The book snapped shut. The next morning, the school was abuzz with news. Someone had gone missing overnight. Their family had no recollection of them. Their friends swore they had never existed. I knew better. I opened the yearbook one last time. The name I had written was there, the ink dried, permanent. Jason's picture was gone. And for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. But as I closed the book and placed it back in my bag, I felt it pulse in my hands. as if it were waiting, because it was never about stopping the book. It was about keeping it fed. And one day I knew it would be hungry again. It started with a whisper, faint, almost imperceptible, like the rustling of paper in an empty hallway. I first heard it after gym class, standing in front of my locker, drenched in sweat and exhaustion. The school was old, built in the 1940s, and the lockers had seen better days. Mine, in particular, had a rusted bottom corner and a lock that jammed every now and then. That day, as I turned the combination, I swear I heard it. A whisper, a voice, curling around my ears, soft and pleading. "Help me." I froze, my fingers still gripping the lock. I looked around, no one was there, just the dimly lit corridor stretching endlessly in both directions. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, buzzing faintly. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to shake it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was the sound of the vents. Then I opened the locker. Inside, neatly placed on top of my books, was a note written in shaky, desperate handwriting. "Don't look at it." I stared at the note, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. Was this a joke? Some weird prank? I didn't remember putting anything like that inside. That's when I noticed something else. Something that made my skin crawl. There was a book I didn't recognize sitting at the bottom of my locker. An old, battered notebook with a leather cover. The edges were frayed, the pages yellowed. I picked it up hesitantly and flipped through the first few pages. The handwriting was messy, hurried, almost frantic. It looked like someone had written their thoughts down in a panic. The first entry read, "If you find this, it's already watching." My stomach twisted. I closed the notebook immediately and shoved it deep into my backpack. Maybe it belonged to someone else. Maybe someone had put it there by mistake. But deep down, I already knew the truth. It had been waiting for me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I swore I could hear the whisper again. It wasn't loud. It was barely there, like a breath against my ear. But it was enough to keep me awake, staring at the ceiling. The next day at school, things got worse. I was in the hallway between classes when I saw it. A shadow moving unnaturally against the wall, long and thin, stretching in ways that made no sense. It wasn't cast by anyone. It slithered from one locker to another, disappearing before my brain could fully process what I was seeing. I blinked, heart pounding. Had anyone else noticed? But the students around me kept walking, oblivious, laughing, talking about homework and weekend plans. Then my locker door creaked open on its own. Inside, another note, "It knows you see it." I tried to ignore it. I really did. But over the next few days, the whispers grew louder. They followed me down the hallways, echoed in empty classrooms, curled beneath my bed at night. And then Ryan disappeared. Ryan was my best friend. The last time I saw him, he was standing by my locker, flipping through the strange notebook I had found. He had laughed, said it was probably just an old journal left behind by some kid decades ago. The next morning, his seat in class was empty. His name was erased from the attendance sheet. His locker was gone. Not just emptied, gone. As if the school had never assigned it in the first place. When I asked my classmates about him, they looked at me in confusion. "Who's Ryan?" Maddie, my lab partner, asked with a frown. I felt my blood run cold. "You're joking, right?" She shook her head. "I think you're mixed up. We've never had a Ryan in our class." I ran to the janitor, Mr. Hensley. He was old, had been working at the school for decades. If anyone would know, it was him. "Please," I begged. "Ryan, my friend. He's missing. And my locker. Something's wrong with it." At the mention of my locker, his eyes widened in fear. "Which one?" he whispered. I told him. His face went pale. "You need to leave it alone." "What? What do you mean?" He leaned in, voice barely audible. "There's a reason that locker was left empty for so long. It belonged to a student back in 1978. A girl named Bethany Carter." My breath caught. "What happened to her?" He hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, he said, "She vanished, just like your friend." One day she was here. The next, it was like she never existed. Her name disappeared from the records. Her parents, they didn't even remember having a daughter. And before she went missing, she said she was hearing whispers. The shadows felt heavier around me. How do I stop it? I asked. His eyes darkened. You can't. Once it marks you, you either feed it or you become part of it. That night, I sat in front of my locker, staring at it. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. The notebook lay open in my lap, its pages filled with desperate pleas from those who came before me. Don't let it take you. Give it another name. My hands trembled as I reached for my pen. If I didn't do this, I would be next. Just like Ryan. Just like Bethany Carter. I thought of Maddie, of the teachers, of the countless students who walked these halls, unaware of what lurked among them. I wrote down a name. The whispers stopped. The hallway went silent. And the next morning, someone else was missing. A new student transferred into our class the following week. No one else seemed to notice, but I knew. I recognized the hollow look in their eyes, the way their hands trembled when they walked past my locker. They had been chosen. The whispers had found a new voice. And for now I was safe, but not forever. It started with a whisper. Lincoln High School had always been known for its rich history, but buried within its past was a darkness no one wanted to speak about. The old auditorium, standing in the west wing of the school, had been closed for years. Students claimed they heard strange sounds coming from inside. Whispers, the rustling of unseen movement, sometimes even the faint echo of laughter when no one was around. Then, one night, a group of seniors decided to break in. They never came back. It was the middle of October, just weeks before Halloween. My best friend, Nate, had always been the reckless one. When he heard about the legends surrounding the old auditorium, he made it his mission to find out the truth. "You're all scared for nothing," he said, grinning as he adjusted his phone camera. "It's just an abandoned room. What's the worst that could happen?" Our group, me, Nate, Claire, and Ryan, stood outside the locked doors, the peeling paint and rusted hinges showing its age. The air was unnaturally cold. My gut twisted, but I pushed the feeling aside. It was just an old school building. Nothing more. Nate took out a crowbar and pried the door open. The creaking sound echoed through the empty halls like a scream. The second we stepped inside, the temperature dropped even more. The darkness swallowed us whole. The inside of the auditorium was massive. Rows of rotting seats stretched into the shadows. The once grand stage now covered in dust and cobwebs. A faint, sickly sweet smell lingered in the air. "Let's split up," Nate suggested, already moving toward the stage. "We'll get better footage that way." "Bad idea," Claire muttered, but we all followed reluctantly. I wandered toward the backstage area, my flashlight flickering as I stepped into the wings. That's when I heard it, the whispering. At first, it sounded like wind slipping through cracks in the walls, but then I realized it was forming words. "He sees you." A chill ran down my spine. I turned to call for Nate, but he was already gone. We searched for him, our voices growing frantic, but there was no sign of Nate. Then, Claire gasped and pointed at the stage. The old velvet curtain, untouched for decades, was slowly rising. There was no one pulling the ropes. A dim, flickering light illuminated the stage, revealing an old set, as if frozen in time. Dust-covered chairs, broken props, and a grand piano stood untouched. Yet something was off. Then we saw them. Figures, transparent and gaunt, sat in the audience watching the stage. Their hollow eyes turned toward us in unison. The show was about to begin. A scratchy phonograph started playing a distorted tune. The ghosts on stage were acting out a scene, their mouths moving silently, their gestures exaggerated and unnatural. And then I saw him. Nate was standing in the center of the stage. His face was blank, eyes wide with terror. His arms moved stiffly, as if controlled by invisible strings. "Help me," he mouthed, but no sound came out. Claire screamed and bolted for the door. It slammed shut before she could reach it. Ryan grabbed my arm. "We have to get out of here. Now." But I couldn't move. My eyes were locked onto a figure standing in the shadows of the balcony. Unlike the ghosts, he was solid, tall, his face obscured by darkness. He lifted a hand and pointed at me. "Join the cast." The shadows stretched, reaching for us. Ryan and Claire pulled me back just in time, and we sprinted toward the nearest exit. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, becoming screams. Claire managed to kick open a door, and we tumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. But Nate never made it out. We turned back just in time to see the doors seal shut, the sound of applause echoing behind them. The next day, the school had no record of a Nathaniel Carter ever being enrolled. His locker was empty. His desk was gone. His parents didn't exist. But in the auditorium, a new portrait had appeared on the wall. It was Nate, dressed in an old-fashioned theater costume, frozen in a permanent, silent performance. And beneath it, a single name, cast member number 13. We tried to tell people what happened, but no one remembered Nate. No one believed us. The school simply locked the doors again, letting the dust settle over the truth. But sometimes, late at night, if you walk past the West Wing, you might hear it. Faint, ghostly applause, and the whispers always beckoning. The show must go on. The legend had been whispered through the halls of Westfield High for decades. A hidden classroom, buried beneath layers of renovations, forgotten by time itself. Some said it was sealed off after a horrific incident. Others claimed students who entered never came back. Most dismissed it as just another ghost story, until we found the door. Started as a joke. Jake, our self-proclaimed fearless leader, smirked as he leaned against the locker. "Come on, it's just an old room. What's the worst that could happen?" I wasn't convinced. Neither was Emily, my best friend. We had heard the stories, how the school once had a room 109, but one day, it vanished. Teachers pretended it never existed, the blueprints didn't show it, and students who looked for it eventually stopped asking questions. But now we had a clue. Nate, our tech-savvy friend, had found something weird in the school's digital archives. An old schedule mentioning room 109. We followed his directions, winding through unused hallways until we reached a dead end. And there it was, a door hidden behind a layer of peeling wallpaper. No handle, just a rusted number plate. 109. Jake grinned, pulling out a crowbar. Time to make history. The door groaned as it opened, revealing a room untouched by time. Dust hung in the air like fog. Rows of desks stood in perfect formation, as if waiting for students who would never return. The blackboard was covered in strange, faded writing, names, dates, phrases in languages I didn't understand. Then Emily gasped. At the far end of the classroom, there was a single desk, untouched by dust. A notebook lay open, its pages crisp and white. A fresh message was scrawled across it. "Welcome back." My blood ran cold. "Guys, someone's been here." Nate shook his head. "No one's used this room in decades." Jake laughed, stepping inside. "Maybe the ghosts missed us." The second we all crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut. We scrambled to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Our phones had no signal, the lights flickered, and the temperature dropped. Then the whispers began. At first, they were distant murmurs, like voices carried through old pipes, but they grew louder, overlapping, urgent. "Who's there?" Emily's voice shook. The whispers stopped. Then the blackboard changed. New words appeared, written in the same eerie handwriting as the notebook. "Class is in session." The overhead lights surged and died, plunging us into darkness. When they flickered back on, Jake was gone. Panic set in. We searched every inch of the classroom, calling Jake's name. His footprints ended at the center of the room, as if he had vanished into thin air. Then we saw the attendance sheet on the teacher's desk. There were names on it, some scratched out, others fresh. Our names. And beside Jake's name, a red line had just appeared, striking it out. I grabbed Emily's arm. "We need to get out of here." We pounded on the door, screamed for help, but no one came. Then the desks started moving. They slid across the floor, forming a semicircle around the teacher's desk. The blackboard changed again. "Take your seats." The whispers returned, growing into a chorus. Shadows gathered at the edges of the room, swirling together, taking shape. Then it stepped forward. A figure in an old, tattered suit. Its face was wrong, like a blurred photograph, features shifting in and out of focus. Empty eye sockets turned toward us as it slowly lifted a hand. "Sit," it rasped. Nate bolted for the door. The figure didn't move, but the desks did. They crashed into him, sending him sprawling. The shadows crept closer. I grabbed the notebook, flipping through the pages. The last entry sent ice through my veins. "You can leave, but only if someone stays." The whispers intensified. The shadows loomed. The figure watched, waiting. Emily was shaking. We can't leave Jake." But Jake was already gone. The classroom had claimed him. Nate clenched his fists. "No way. We all get out. Together." The lights flickered. The blackboard changed again. "Choose." A desk scraped forward, empty, waiting. A sick realization hit me. Someone had to take Jake's place. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps. I can't." Before she could finish, Nate grabbed the pen from the teacher's desk and scrawled his own name onto the attendance sheet. A red line slashed through it instantly. The door burst open. A gust of icy air rushed in. The whispers turned to wails. We didn't hesitate. Emily and I ran. We stumbled into the hallway, gasping. The door to room 109 was gone. Just a blank wall where it had been. The next day, no one remembered Nate. His locker was empty. His name vanished from school records. Teachers didn't recall him. It was like he had never existed. But we remembered. Emily and I made a pact we would never speak of it. Never go near that hallway again. Yet sometimes late at night when I pass by the old wing, I swear I hear it. A single desk scraping against the floor. And a whisper just for me. "Class is still in session."